However, this is a complete and utter disgrace as to what San Francisco is doing. Why, after signing Aiyuk to a massive deal in which he plays 7 games last year, destroys his knee, tears his ACL, tears his MCL, tears other ligaments in his knee, and now his entire trade market is in the gutter. It is tanked. Nobody's going to give you anything near what you were asking for last year for him, and now you're angry enough to actually make the trade and saying, we're regretful, we're upset, he pissed us off. How dare you point the finger at somebody else when you are primarily the reason to blame for the issues? And yes, I know Aiyuk made things tougher, but the front office put themselves in a position to allow him to make things tougher for them. They waited and waited and waited. Oh, we'll wait things out. We'll penny pinch. They could have got that deal done back in March. In March, before DJ Moore signed, before Amon-Ra St. Brown signed, and they didn't. They did not. They sat on their hands. They waited for this thing to skyrocket in regards to the receiver market, and they put themselves in this position. It is a terrible look from the outset. The optics look terrible. You sign a guy to a 4-year, $120 million deal after you have to rush upstairs to avoid trading him away to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and who John Lynch was on the phone with actively talking trades. And now a year later, you want to say, we regret it, we don't want him here, we don't like him here. Well, you can trade him for now pennies on the dollar. Last year, you had offers from the Jaguars for rumored to be a Zay Jones and a first-round pick or a high-end second-round pick, and you decided to sit there and do nothing. And you redid Debo's contract, you re-signed Brandon Aiyuk, and you drafted Pearsall. They put themselves in this position. It is a terrible look for this franchise to pay a big-name player, watch him get hurt, get pissed off because he got hurt and didn't play well, and then say, you know what, we're irritated. We're done with you. You're going to lose a massive dead cap hit. And again, the outside, the optics, the PR, it looks like a dysfunctional group of irritated billionaires getting pissed off because they're not getting a return on the investment. What is this? Like, this is what the Browns do. This is what other teams do. This is not what the San Francisco 49ers, who have been to 2 Super Bowls, do. This is what you see some like the New York Jets do. They pay players big money, and after 1 year, they're done. I get it. There's a lot to be saved from trading away Brandon Aiyuk, and we can dive into that here. Because yes, while you can talk about it being ridiculous and just outright dumb and unnecessary, and just how bad it looks for Jed York and these other executives and John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, who put their necks on the line to retain Brandon Aiyuk. If you want to tighten the reins, then cut Kyle Juszczyk, cut Javon Hargrave. Tell them you have less to spend this offseason, less guaranteed money. You can't play big game hunting. You have to cut on certain areas. Don't bring back Dre Greenlaw. Don't pay for a high-end third cornerback. Don't pay for a safety. Use your 11 draft picks for a reason. You traded with Deebo Samuel, great. You don't trade a 27-year-old wide receiver he just gave $120 million to after 1 year. You don't do that. You don't trade those guys for a 5th-round pick. That is irresponsible. It's negligent for a front office to do those things. And yet they want to preach that we don't have enough money, this, that, and the other. Oh, we're irritated. We're upset. How dare you even tell us that, even work that way? That's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of baloney. You're just angry that you lost a couple deals, and now you're throwing a hissy fit and a temper tantrum. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. That said, I do want to look at the reasons as to why you can sell me on this deal, where they're going to lose this year. If they trade Aiyuk now, they're going to lose this year. They're not getting a 2nd-round pick. They're not getting a 1st-round pick. And look, I don't buy into the idea that you have to have these top-end receivers. You don't have to have Debo and Aiyuk and Pearsall and Jennings, albeit you want to have one of those guys there to help you out. I love Jawan Jennings. I love Pearsall. You don't have to have the dog, albeit you want to have the dog. And I think if Aiyuk was healthy, you'd have the dog as your number 1 guy. The entire idea last year was you draft Pearsall, you have Aiyuk, who's hopefully healthy, albeit he's not now. You have Javon Jennings, you have Kittle, you have McCaffrey. Your offense is immensely better than what it was with Deebo Samuel being your number 2. But let's talk about the other way this trade could potentially be looked at. Trading Aiyuk, yes, will be a loss now. You're not getting anything back from that you want unless they're eating future money, which doesn't seem like they want to, knowing the fact they refused to do so during the Deebo Samuel negotiations. They could have had a 4th-round pick for him. They said, nope, you're taking the entire salary. The Commanders said, okay, then nope, you're not getting a 4th-round pick. If they wouldn't do it for Deebo, why would they do it for Aiyuk? So, okay, that's understood now. What team is going to give you a day 2 pick? Maybe you get a 4th-round pick or a 3rd-round pick, but I do not think they're going to get that unless they're giving draft pick compensation in return to the other team. But in the very simplest form, trading Aiyuk, not knowing his future, he's injured, he may never be the same, may be the biggest swing they can make in order to keep their window open and almost bust that window wide open. Because at that point, you have Brock Purdy, you have George Kittle, you have Christian McCaffrey. You'd have all these pieces in order still, even after trading Brandon Aiyuk, who's probably not going to come back until late October, maybe November. I'd probably think November. That said, if you trade Brandon Aiyuk in the very simplest form of the trade, it's a $7 million cap loss this year. So you go from around $33 million in cap space to $26 million in cap space. Again, you can get that back with restructures and extensions for Kittle and Warner. But that's before even paying Brock Purdy more money, which, again, if you're trading or you're trading Aiyuk away and you're losing cap space, it makes signing Brock Purdy harder, at least if you want to front load that deal to a certain extent. However, future-wise, when you come to maybe lowering Brock's cap hit or keeping it relatively lower, you talk about 3 years from now, San Francisco would save $103 million. That is their net gain, if you will, if they trade Brandon Aiyuk. And that is one of the reasons as to why this is even on the table. That they can lose now. They have cap space to lose. They're okay losing it. However, they can save $103 million over the next 4 seasons. Yet, that deal has to get done before April 1st when his bonus kicks in. So if Brandon Aiyuk is going to get traded, they have less than a month to get that thing done. Free agency starts in about 6 to 8 days from now, depending on when you're watching this. They would probably like to get this thing done relatively quickly. And there is a hard deadline to get this thing done. That is April 1st. They want to avoid the bonus because they want to have the max savings. They don't want to have to deal with a higher end dead cap hit, which will be astronomical if they move him. We can talk about dead cap hits. It's an $18.4 million dead cap hit just to trade Brandon Aiyuk, although maybe the dead cap hit isn't that big of a deal. But if you combine Deebo and Aiyuk's, you're about $50 million in dead cap moving off of your 2 receivers. Yikes. Oh my God. What are we doing? I get it. You want to save $100 million in the future. Awesome. I get that. But $50 million in dead cap? Who are we? The New Orleans Saints? You want to win now? Moves like this usually indicate, like John Lynch has kind of said, like I said, this is a clean house but remain competitive kind of year, and they have the high-end players to get it done, but you can tell this team, well, isn't punting on the year, certainly isn't all in on the year. And I think that, again, going back to my complaint of what a mess this is, any team acquiring Aiyuk for the next 4 years would pay him about $25 million this year, 27 in 2026, about 28 in 2027, and 30 in 2028. So if they get back medicals, in which Aiyuk does have a test coming up on his knee, maybe he passes that. Maybe that is the tipping point on things, that if Aiyuk passes that test, that's when a trade can get done, because that usually means he can pass the physical. So maybe there's a reason as to why John Lynch mentioned that in his combine press conference, that, well, BA has an upcoming test. Maybe that wasn't, hey, here's a good update. Maybe that was, hey, here. That could mean as soon as that's done and he gets a thumbs up and he's good to go, they're going to kick his ass out of the door. Because if you have executives who are openly disgruntled with him, they're angry with him, maybe shouldn't have signed that deal anyways. That said, if they're that frustrated, letting it very clear that they want him out of the building and they're tired and they're done with it, San Francisco could just be buying its time for Aiyuk to pass that off in regards to his knee test. Now, I know he's in New York, and Niner media says here he thinks people are reading too much into his recent IG post. He doesn't get it. The caption was very, very difficult to understand, I will add. I don't really know what he was meaning by that. I don't think it means too much. I also don't know why he's in New York City, but it is March. Maybe it means nothing. I also don't know where his test is being done. Maybe it is being done in New York City, albeit it seems rather redundant for a knee he had surgery on. There's probably swelling there if that's the case. Usually your ligaments and bones and tendons and muscles swell after a long flight, which if he lives in the Bay, it's a long flight to New York City. I've done it plenty of times. I don't know. It could mean nothing. It could mean something. I think the league offices are in New York City. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think they are. Maybe that's why, but I wouldn't read too much into it. However, I think that big knee test he has coming up is going to be a very defining day if they want to trade him. If he can pass that, because look, San Francisco could say, we're listening to offers. We'll trade Brandon Aiyuk. We don't want to, but if you call us, wink, 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 we're open to it. If he can't pass a physical, it doesn't matter. Like, you can listen all you want. No team is trading for I don't want to call him a cripple, but no team is trading for a wide receiver that cannot pass a physical. It literally cannot pass through the league offices. It won't get signed off on. They'll have to take a physical again later to get a deal done. So, I don't get the trade. I think it's a massive PR thing. I think this is above John and Kyle's head. I think this is I would not be shocked to hear there is some disgruntlement feelings or disgruntled feelings in regards to Kyle and John from random people on the executives. I don't think it is Jed York. That would be kind of foolish of him to piss off his GM and his head coach, which has been the most successful tenure of Jed York's ownership career. I just think there again are these unnamed people that are causing problems. And I think they're kind of doing whatever it takes to, yes, be smart and cut some fat off the roster, but also trading away Brandon Aiyuk, who isn't even 28 years old. Like, come on. Like, okay, just admit you messed up, which, to give the Niners credit, and I do want to be honest here, the Niners have been very stubborn in previous years from moving off of people. In recent years, though, they were very quick to trade away Trey Lance to get a 4th-round pick. This is maybe them saying, look, the longer we wait, the worse this gets for us. Maybe they know his medicals aren't very great, and if they don't trade him now, there'll be no value. Now, I could push back on that and say, well, let's say his medicals are just okay. Let's say that come November, Aiyuk comes back and looks rather competent, maybe isn't himself, but there's promise. There's some signs of, okay, there is the exact same receiver he was pre-injury. Well, then his trade value goes a little bit back up, where now, let's say they want a 3rd-round pick for Aiyuk. It would probably be Aiyuk and maybe a 6th for a 3rd-round pick, maybe a 5th in Aiyuk for a 3rd-round pick, or maybe it is just Aiyuk and they need some money to get a 3rd-round pick, although I don't think San Francisco wants to do that. I think there is value in at least giving Aiyuk 1 year, getting him back on the field, maybe have him reestablish some trade value, because I am completely for if Aiyuk comes back and they need some money and he looks okay, he looks like maybe once he gets another year under his belt, he'll be back to his true form. I don't mind trading him next offseason. It's less commitment from the receiving team. You can get a higher draft pick more likely in return. I just think there's value in housing Brandon Aiyuk, if you will, for 1 year, letting him rehab, letting him come back for you, letting him maybe contribute for you. And if San Francisco is seriously not really in the race this year, just keep him. You're going to re-sign Brock Purdy. You're going to have George Kittle. You're going to cut some players and you're going to maneuver your roster. But if you already don't feel the need to add a receiver, then why do you feel the need to trade a receiver away? Like when they trade away Deebo Samuel, I don't know if in their mind they're thinking, well, Brandon's also gone too, which I get to begin the year he is, but when you're telling at least Tim Kawakami that you don't mind Tariq Owens being the receiver number 3 next year, it's like, wait, what? Is that a Band-Aid? Is that a until Aiyuk gets back kind of deal? I'm not sure. But I tell you what, again, you're going to have a hard time selling this fan base on losing Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel in the exact same year, especially if, let's say, Pearsall doesn't play well, although I think he will, or let's say Javon Jennings, who, reminder, is in the last year of his deal too. So maybe this is them playing the long game, knowing that in a couple of years they want to redo Warner and they want to redo Kittle and they want to redo Javon Jennings and they want to bring back certain people. But on the offside or the offset, this is likely Trent Williams' last year. I'm going to assume once he retires, he'll redo that deal again to make almost no money on the cap in 2026. So it's not like they're not going to find some relief somewhere. Like they have some older players that are off the books next year. I get it. They're going to have some bigger payments, but I don't know. It's a very confusing offseason. A lot of rumors.